I am just eternally flabbergasted on how, say, entertainment from, the East, so from China, Japan, South Korea, how free it would be for the Western entertainment to do these things. Like, I made a video about Marvel Rivals. Now it's doing pretty damn good. And if Marvel would do something like this, it would just be so fucking free, but I guess they decided not to. And it's like Marvel's the only not ain't the only one who's just letting their industry falter, funneling money into upper management while the devs, the people on the ground, and the consumer just suffers. So many other companies like Disney, DC, American companies that set the standard for entertainment has just decided to falter for what, like, we don't even know the reason why they decided not to give the consumer the best possible product. We just know that they're doing it, and it could be for ideological reasons, so they bring that crowd in to defend them. People who do not purchase or consume the product, like people who do not play the games, do not watch the movie, or they do it sort of like, as a side, but they're not fans. But now the consumer is seeing that the majority of good entertainment is not coming from the West anymore. Like maybe a couple of indie devs and indie game companies are doing it, but it's not the norm. Like if you look at the video game awards, the majority of those games that were like game of the year contenders weren't Western games. Like maybe one was like Balatro, I think. Well, I mean it's from an indie dev, but like Marvel Rivals is dominating and isn't even close. Yeah, and I mean, hero shooters is a niche, like because Overwatch is again yet another company like Blizzard is faltering. You have other hero shooters coming out, so let's give this bad boy a watch.
We've all heard it said that hero shooters are
I always forget to do this. I don't know why. Hold on. So that is not annoying feedback. Going back.
We've all heard it said that hero shooters are a declining, oversaturated genre, and we know that there's a sizable graveyard. We just saw Concord die, but of course,
That's not true. Like Concord was bad for so many reasons, and a lot of like journalists that justify trying to give it a better score than what it deserves will say that to sort of play damage control for their constituents. But again, Deadlock Protocol proved that that's not the case. Like, Team Fortress 2 has a fan base despite the bots, but believe it or not, people still play Overwatch. And now Marvel Rivals is also proof that that's just not the case.
assessment that does not gel with Marvel Rivals is absolutely gigantic success, because somehow in a year where everybody has been mocking publishers over hero shooters and generally just mocking a lot of live service titles, Marvel Rivals is absolutely thriving, and that is not an overstatement. It got
Yeah, and again, these characters just look visually appealing, right? This is another thing that people, for some reason, people who can't have an adult conversation will be like, oh, well, looks don't matter. Are they in a visual medium? The visuals absolutely do matter, right? If you don't care, then you're not part of this conversation. Like the conversation is, people do care for the visuals. People do care for aesthetically pleasing characters. The company and like Western companies are just not giving them to you for some reason. They refuse to do it, and if you say anything about it, you are attacked. Like that's the conversation, right?
not an overstatement. It got 10 million players in its first 72 hours, and by now, it's actually hit 20 million. This is so much activity that Steam's backend even struggled, and for some developers, it broke. They were not able to access the Steam backend to update their stuff. And this was all timed with Marvel Rivals absolutely ramming Valve servers, and of course, their servers were getting rammed by both Tencent and NetEase because at the same time, Path of Exile 2 did happen to be doing quite well. So much.
Yeah, my friend are playing this game. I might pick this up sooner than later. I mean, I have so many games on the back burner, but yeah, I heard Path of, and again, yet another game like who's from China, or at least the parent company is Chinese. You know, not Western. Path of Exile 2. I believe it will come out as free to play, but now you have to pay for it. I'll probably wait for it to be free. But yeah, you have all these interesting, and this is just effectively a Diablo clone, but so many people like this over Diablo.
Much so that together, Steam actually hit a new concurrency record of 39.2 million users online at once, which is crazy. But that's not what's truly noteworthy to me. A free-to-play game exploding and then just falling to pieces, or people quickly running away, a flash in the pan, that is not a surprise. It's actually what we tend to expect. And on the internet, when people tell you something is shocking, it's often hyperbole. Here, no. This is a shocking chart. This is the retention that we are seeing with Marvel Rivals, and this is genuinely impressive.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like it effectively maintained the same amount of people. It's going up and down a lot, but it's effectively maintaining the same amount since it came out. Yeah, you don't really see that with, Western games. Like sometimes you get a big dip here of people being curious, but then it's just kind of going down. Like then that's kind of the uh, what's to be expected with new games. A lot of people play, and even a lot of live service games. Like a lot of people play out of curiosity, and then there's a decline. But yeah, this is maintaining about the same amount going into the week.
It has essentially maintained its launch peak for an entire fortnight. This is a vanishingly rare achievement. It is absolutely stunning. The daily lows for this game are resting at 180k. And, they're good, the highs are good and regular, and I kind of remember the words of our erstwhile Prime Minister Theresa May, strong and stable. It's rare for a new game to be that strong and stable, and if you're Blizzard, you're absolutely going to be feeling a sting. So much so, you'll definitely need to check out today's sponsor.
And if I'm not mistaken, Blizzard bashed Overwatch because it's like, oh, you're just a clone of our game, and everyone's like, Blizzard, shut the fuck up. Like, if you would actually be able to make a game, or at least, I heard they're moving back to Overwatch 1, effectively moving back, but, I mean, I'm not holding out any breath. And will that make the game better? I doubt it.
I'd go for annual, that's how you save the most money, and of course, if it's not for you...
And Blizzard used to be in the grace of its consumer, but again, I don't know if it hired people or if it, decided to, go the route of many other companies to where it's just not even competing anymore. It's going against the consumer. It's enforcing, artistic decisions in the game that no one agrees with. And even if you shit on it, then people attack you. I mean, I just don't know this odd direction many Western companies are going, but a lot of them are going down this road. And now I think it's time to have an adult conversation about aesthetics in gaming. Let's shove the people that are like, oh, you're just a chud and coomer, shove them to the side and be like, all right, now the adults in the room, let's have a legitimate conversation. Because again, the fact of the matter is you're just not allowed to have this conversation. Like, if you want to make a game for a predominantly male audience, and I said this on Facebook, you either have a relatable masculine male protagonist character or a hot female relatable character like Laura Croft. Anything else, and you're appealing to a fraction of a market or a non existent market of people, people who will ideologically support you but won't actually buy the fucking game, right? If you want to make money, if you want to sell a product, you go towards the majority consumer base. I mean, it's what Marvel Rivals is doing. It's what Path of Exile 2 is doing, right? It's what, these gotcha games like Nikkei, Zanla Zone Zero, and Girls Front Line is doing. 2 is doing. I mean, can we have this conversation without someone in the back spurting the fuck out?
No questions asked, 30-day refund, and of course you can actually browse their materials and their demos for free. So what the hell's going on here? Marvel Rivals is a free-to-play just like Overwatch, but that's not really an even comparison because of price anchoring. Overwatch 1 was a paid game, and it was far less of a playable storefront than Overwatch 2 has ended up being, and that's what made Overwatch 2 sting. Of course, contrasted with all of the cool stuff that we were shown at BlizzCon that of course never ended up happening. With Rivals, well, it just has audience expectations being met. Everybody knows what to expect. I mean, for an extreme example, on this very channel, we caught a lot of flack for being harsh on the Delta Force microtransactions. To us, they were pretty damn bad microtransactions. That's why we criticized them pretty damn heavy in that video. But clearly, a lot of people didn't care at all, really. And I imagine it's because it was a free-to-play game, and it basically met their expectations. Here then...
Yeah, I mean, people don't really care for egregious microtransactions in free-to-play games. I mean, I guess it depends. A lot of people, just don't care. And again, a lot of people will gladly pay money if the game is good, if they dumped enough hours and they're like, well, I'm in this for the long haul. Like I did this with the first Descendant. I also did that with Nikkei. I want to do that with Zanla Zone Zero, but my bank freaks the fuck out. They're like, you're buying what from South Korea? Like, okay, if it's a free to play game, I mean, most people don't really care. Now, if you demand full retail price for the game, and then you have egregious microtransactions, I think the majority of people will care because it's like, okay, well, you've already front loaded your cost for the product. Why do I now have to pay more for things that you could just add in game? And any like cosmetics and stuff can be added in game. But like I said, if it's a free game, people tend to not care. But if it's $70, $100, $120, people will care.
Rivals is made by NetEase Games. They're a group who absolutely know how to retain players based on the countless large-scale free-to-play live service titles that they run, many of which are, of course, are on mobile, and, well, they have many investments in so many other games as well. Now, brand-wise, this has got Marvel, but it's got a flavor of Marvel that, at least from my outsider's perspective, doesn't seem tarnished by MCU fatigue. I mean, looking at the game, they're clearly leaning into comic art in a way that's actually cool. Their designs shine. It is the opposite of Concord. Concord's a game that did have a few banging bits of concept art, but my god, there are not even words to describe how badly that all translated into Sony Photoreal 3D. It just didn't work. But Marvel Rivals has another strength. It is not wholly original, and you may think that's me just absolutely launching into an attack, but look, it is pretty similar to Overwatch, but that's not really the main point. One person who did try to make a point in this, though, was Mike Ybarra, our dearly departed Blizzard president, who is still out there hunting down some tasty high-growth opportunities. He launched a rather infamous tweet. I'm just going to read it out for you, and hey, you gotta go.
Oh yeah, that was the guy.
The original. Quote, looks like Overwatch Marvel Rivals ships tomorrow. I mean, even the character name, Widowmaker in Overwatch versus Black Widow in Marvel Rivals, lol. NetEase Tencent, all the same.
Wait, but isn't Black Widow exist before Widowmaker? Like, if we're talking the entirety of the IP, this is that fucking guy, is it? Like, why does everyone need to act like the fucking clown? Right? It's like, okay, so companies no longer care to compete anymore, but they will go to Twitter and make some of the stupidest fucking uh, points and stupidest fucking takes imaginable. Like, how about you actually try to compete? Like, Overwatch set the standard for hero shooters at one point until again they decided to just not care for the IP and to hire people who don't care for the IP and don't care for the consumer and wants to morally impose on the consumer. Like, and then, when Marvel Rivals is just perfecting it, and you have this goofball just making stupid takes. Like, is that where we're at now in entertainment? Where you just don't compete, you just make stupid takes on Twitter just to drum up controversy and to drum up clicks. I mean, I guess that's where we're at. Like, everyone wants to be the heel, but if everyone starts being the clown, the whole damn thing just looks like a fucking circus. It's just so surprising that this is where we're at.
Oh, Mike. Mike kind of had a point buried through the stupidity, but the tweet absolutely is just him literally saying that Black Widow, a character introduced in the year 1964, was a Widowmaker knockoff, which is not true.
Yeah, and okay, even if it was, who cares? I mean, I get a lot of flack for this because I defended Power World, despite I 100% believe Power World is a straight rip from Pokemon. But if the consumer doesn't care and the consumer buys it and the consumer consumes it, Power's just a better product. I mean, you know, StarCraft took a lot from Warhammer 40k. I mean, Path of Exile, uh, Diablo. I mean, a lot of games take like everything tried to be Star Wars. Everything tried to be, uh, a space opera with different alien races and different, moral conundrums. Like, but no one cared because people consumed it, and that's just fine. I mean, copyright doesn't mean copy, not at all. It means copyright. You're allowed to have knockoffs. It's just if you're not infringing on the copyright, it's fine. And if the consumer, if the gamer likes it, so fucking be it. The market has spoken.
You could maybe say his actual point, though, is the character kits. In a way, it makes the point he was trying to make, but it also shows why people are resonating with this game. Black Widow has got a rifle, it's got a scoped mode that does more damage, she's got a grappling hook. So yeah, she will totally appeal to Widowmaker mains. But take a look at gameplay footage they have added to the kit. You've got a knockback kick, you've got a melee baton plus charged plasma round, and it does come together to actually play differently.
Yeah, it is for the Widowmakers, but she has more of a kit to her as opposed to just, I mean, for the top fraggers that like to no scope and snipe people. I mean, and that's fine. Yeah, I think Marvel has the thing where you can combine abilities to make them stronger. I mean, that's something that's innovative and new.
Now, I get why Ybarra tweeted, but the gameplay here is different, especially with its close range, third person brawl element that's going on. And that's the point. Rivals does not just copy, generally speaking, it iterates. Now, there's always going to be genre crossover. Maybe I'm going to take a look at, say, Paladins from Hi-Rez, but Marvel Rivals is different. Like Overwatch, it's got the split between tank, DPS, and support, and many of the 33 launch heroes do have direct crossovers, some that are absolutely leaned into. I mean, Black Widow probably doesn't need to be a sniper, and yeah, she'll definitely be like that to appeal to the Widowmaker mains. And some of them are inherent, like Hawkeye and Hanzo, who are both bow users, or Symmetra and Doctor Strange, who both use portals. But the thing that matters is that Rivals gets to cook with almost 70 years of inspiration and a wealth of real-world player experience from other hero shooters, and that means what we've got is a slick game that is an iteration rather than a clone. That
Yeah, and again, you could argue they do copy, but they also build upon a lot of things. And just looking at the backgrounds, looking at the abilities, and all that, it just looks better. I mean, it's kind of a slightly different art style than Overwatch, but it's just visually appealing and it scratches that dopamine. Like you've seen it whenever this guy headshotted and whenever Widowmaker headshotted and killed people. Like, it scratches that dopamine response.
That is the point that Ybarra's absolutely dunked on tweet missed, and I think it's why this is a game that is actually surprising and delighting people. It has iterated and brought its formula forward. And in a way, it's done that against traditional wisdom that would say that hero shooters on the downtrend, that there's MCU fatigue, and that the track record with hero games is actually pretty damn bad. When we think hero game, we're all just going to think of PlayStation Spider-Man, but that's because we've forgotten the massive graveyard of dead games, and even the Marvel graveyard, which will of course have Square Enix's Avengers in it. That was very much the lolcow of its here. But even good games that have got like big popular Marvel superheroes have failed to meet financial expectations. We've got two examples of this. One is Guardians of the Galaxy and the other is Firaxis' Midnight Suns. And the thing is, those were both really good, well-reviewed games that just didn't sell. And then, of course, there's the now rather end-of-life Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Before that, there's Gotham Knights. So it's not been a good time.
No, but then you have like Arkham City and Spider-Man 2, 1 and 2 were okay games. They just cost a lot and there's a lot of bullshit in those games. I mean, people don't really like, it's hero fatigue because if you release just a lot of slop, like people just assume, like if you release bad game after bad game, like any product following that bad product's going to have a glaring eyes on it. But again, Marvel Rivals just seen past the mold because it's just unapologetically just a Marvel hero shooter. Like, it doesn't market itself as anything big or anything flashy. It's just, I mean, it is flashy and it does have aesthetically pleasing characters, but it's just, what it says it is. I mean, it doesn't try to, put things into it that, the consumer just asks, why is this here? Like Spider-Man 2, because the consultants wanted to add it in. It doesn't try to stand on a soapbox over you and try to shove ideology and shove, what the consultants added in the game. That is anti-consumer. It's just is what it is.
Comparison, though, Marvel Rivals has got half of the internet standing Jeff the Bloody Landshark, who I didn't even know existed, and it turns out has only existed since 2019. So this is not a case of put heroes in it that people know and suddenly everyone will start playing. No, what they've done is they've nailed the basics. They have carefully chosen some deep pools, they've chosen things that everybody knows, and they've executed it all to an extremely high standard. The mechanical diversity of this game, especially considering that it's only just launched, is absolutely insane. And that's a large part of why people will play it over Overwatch. One team can have, let's see, a teleporting ninja fight, multiple flight-based characters, web swingers, and where the web swinging actually feels good. If you've got Rocket and Groot, then you actually get an entirely new ability and game-wide mechanic on top of your existing set.
Yeah, and a lot of people just play it like a beer and pretzels game. It's something dump a couple hours down with your friends and dump a couple hours a day into it, and you feel refreshing, like, wow, I actually played an interesting game. And all the characters have different mechanics and, again, different abilities. A lot of different things that come together to just make an enjoyable game. Again, this is just based on what I've seen, and also a lot of, like, VTubers and streamers are playing the game, which adds to the the high player count because again the people who watch them were like, oh well, I want to give this game a try with my friends. I mean, it's just compounding advertisement for the game, and that's why you have the up and down that you've seen back here whenever he showed the graph. Yeah, like there. I mean, you could say those are all the streamers playing. Those are and bringing it back up. I mean,
And to quote from the game's director, the awesomely named Thaddeus Sasser, well, he basically said this. I don't know about you, but when I heard the concept of the game, I was like, oh my god, I want to be Storm in a game. I want to be Doctor Strange in a game. I want these heroes in the game. That sounds awesome, and of course my mind immediately leapt to all the cool possibilities you could have with that. And that seems like a very trite thing. I mean, of course he's going to say he's the director for the game. And it's absolutely not a fair one-to-one comparison, but do you know what appears in my head? Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, where the first reaction from most people when they watched that E3 trailer was, oh, this looks like a generic third-person shooter. Why are we just doing shoot-bang with guns? This doesn't really feel like Heroes, which all...
it's also just like live service season pass. Like it copied all the things, and I mean the environments look amazing, but you don't go like there's nowhere to go. Like you just climb things, you just play shooty bang bang. You have, you know, gear rarity. You have upgrade like a skill tree. Yeah, yeah. I mean the story is also terrible, and we also heard that consultants also worked on this game to try raising their ESG, which adds anti-consumer things into the game based off ideology. You know, people see these things and they're like, and to be fair, I think at peak it had like 30,000 people playing. A lot of people play just to be, you know, out of curiosity, but it just did not become what it wasn't what people thought it was going to be.
Obviously, broad market perception, what consumers thought, was not enough to get that game any cut through. Well, look, that's enough lavishing this game with praise. Let's get back to business, especially because there's a statistic that puts this whole thing in context. Matt Piscatella has got 2 decades of industry analysis experience. He's the executive director of Circana. They're a long-time analytics firm. They are not small. You actually may know one of the companies they just acquired. Nielsen, as in Nielsen of television ratings fame. So they're a big fish with massive corporate clients, literally.
Yeah, I mean, so they're business is analytics. Their business is figuring out what the consumer wants and giving it to them, right? And you think like Warner Brothers and Blizzard would have people that do this, but no. I guess who they hired were ideologically possessed millennials that are like, oh yeah, add this to the game, you know, be anti-consumer because it'll get clicks, but don't give the consumer what they want. You got to act like you're the consumer's mommy and daddy, and act like you know, you're giving the consumer like something that they need or something that they have to have. Then the game doesn't sell. The consumer moves to other games, and again, because you know a lot of the studios just shut the hell down because no one's buying the fucking game and they're failing.
Their stock in trade is actually having good analytics. And what's great is Matt shares loads of games data in public. This chart shows the percentage of weekly actives by game title. And better than anything, this shows just how winner takes all this industry is. Because we can see that the top 5 games hold 75% of audiences, like just by player numbers. And if you're an indie, in a way, that's okay because you're fighting for the 25% of the audience, not the big 75%. You don't need that insane level of scale to be successful. But if you are a major AAA live service, you need to make a dent in that 75%. You need to fight with those games that are taking so many people in an absolute winner-takes-all industry. And of course, it's failing to do that leads to the likes of, say, X-Defiant going under the way that it did. Concord immediately dying because there was no real universe where it was going to get itself to where it needed to be. And it's in that context that Rivals is actually impressive, because in a winner-takes-all industry, it has managed to get cut through.
Yeah, and a lot of like AAA Western companies kind of put themselves in this corner where they have to appeal to the widest audience. They have to make the game $70. They have to have egregious microtransactions because they don't want, and they have to use popular IPs and beat them to death. It's like they can't, move into other niches. It's like they can't have you know, appealing characters just to, be able to sell merch and offset the price. Because if they do that, a bunch of people on Twitter who do not play the fucking game will get mad at them. Like the very people they hire will boycott them. Like they will stand between the consumer and the product and demand it change. Like this is where a lot of companies are, like CD Projekt Red. I hired so much bureaucracy that they forced themselves in this corner. They forced themselves into selling any product this way, and this is why I think Assassin's Creed Shadows is just going to fail. Like they can push it back however many times, and I know they have to release it because they've already put so much money, and they also already have a viable product. But I think it's going to fail because one, Ubisoft's a failing company, and two, I mean, this is just where entertainment is right now. And it's like they have no intention on moving past this.
And this is what their director had to say. It's pretty wise. There's a switching cost. I've already invested in Overwatch. I've got 15 skins for Pharah. I'm not going anywhere. I think the trick is you need to have that reason that people want to come and play your game, and I think Marvel Rivals does that exactly with the superhero. And that's basically the big point. Nailing fantasy and using the comics as an excuse to go extremely hard on designs and to make those designs fundamentally appealing. That has worked. Look, I'm not trying to be cruel to Concord on purpose, but just look at the skin.
Yeah, like these are just ugly and appealing and very like the color saturation moved to high. Like who the fuck wants to play this character? Like, I mean, Concord had a lot not going for it. I mean, had very little going for it, and a lot of people were just like, oh, this is another shitty game that was shitty, aesthetics. And again, they put in time, money, and effort to purposely make the characters as unappealing as possible because this is what you have when you have people that just wants to push an ideology instead of pushing a product.
Look at what they look like. And now,
like, who the fuck wants to play whoever the fuck this is? Like, what the fuck is this character design?
now look at the things that you can buy within this game. So, Mr. Herman Hulst of PlayStation, if you're confused about why Concord, which you reportedly were really bullish about, if you're kind of confused why it didn't really work out, this is a really good example. But even with all that good, there are two things to discuss. Number one, business model. It's coming under some critique and for strange ways because it does seem a little bit poorly thought out. But also that this game is actually walking a very similar path to Overwatch, and they are going to have to be careful and make sure that they do not step into all of the rakes that, of course, Blizzard stepped into, meaning that Blizzard hit themselves in the face. Monetization first, and I'd say that it's mixed, though fundamentally it does have something that Overwatch does not have in that it is a third-person game. Now, if you look at Counter-Strike, I mean, obviously, it's guns and knives because those are the most tangible and visible things. But with, say, League of Legends, which has now got hyper-expensive skins that can cost hundreds of dollars, that's third person. You can see your character. It's almost as if regularly seeing the thing that you're expected to buy kind of matters. Rivals then has got...
Yeah, and people like to flex. Like, the game, like Overwatch, like, Fashion Frame is just a completely different offset group of people who play the game specifically to have to show off their Warframe. And this is above high competitive, doing the most fucking damage to the highest type of enemy like that I do, or like the Eidolon hunting group, or the Steel Path goers. I mean, like you have different sets of of a game that people fly into, and it just adds to the game because you have just an entire market of people that will buy skins and buy things to make their character look good. I mean, that just adds to the game, adds to the community.
Of the standard suite. It's got a battle pass, it's got cosmetic bundles, but where things get a little bit dementia-inducing is, of course, currencies is one of those. So all those things I mentioned are purchased using units, and you can get units through battle pass progression, challenges, events, and something that NetEase knows very well indeed: promo codes. So you may not know this if you don't play them, but promo codes are a massive part of the gacha game world and culture. Basically, gacha game players are not stupid. They know that it is a crazy gambling.
Well, no, I think they understand. Yeah, I agree. I think they can 100% understand what they're getting into. It's just there's a specific type of gotcha gamer that absolutely will put unabsorbent amounts of money into a game that is just not required. Like, you have games like Nikkei that gives you so much free shit that you start to feel bad, and you're like, well, I mean, I might as well. Xanla Zone Zero, where it's incredibly difficult to get an S tier character, but I mean, the combat and the character looks cool. I don't really know what Frontline Girls 2 is doing because I kind of just play that off and on. But I mean, those are the gotcha games I've played. I mean, can I think of any others? No, not really.
Hellscape, but the peace is kept because the gacha companies generally deliver a shitload of content, and they're often quite generous when it comes to things like promo codes, especially in major holidays and anniversaries. So their inclusion here is a smart leg up on the Western competition.
Yeah, and again, this is what Nikkei does. They give you just so much free shit for just playing the game. Above the season pass, formula. They're like, oh, if you play on this day or here, just have free shit. Or if the game ever, say, goes into maintenance, they give you another truckload of free shit. Like, they're trying their best to retain the player through playing the game and through things like that. I mean, I think that's a good call because, gacha gamers understand they're fighting, gacha players understand they're fighting RNG, and it's not always going to be in their favor, unless you're me, by the way. Like, I mean, I almost have every single character in Nikkei Gods of Victory. I'm probably missing, like, a couple of the Pilgrims and, like, one from the Elysium Nikkeis and two from, like, Tetra. But I almost done beat the main campaign. But even the first to say, I don't want to spend a lot of time stroking my own cock, but I get very lucky in these games, and I don't even know why. Like, I don't deserve it. And that's also the thing, that because you need to give people the prospect of winning, maybe, I don't know, 1 out of the 10 times. Because again, they understand what, like, gotcha gamers do understand what they're getting into. So you have to have that carrot on the stick, or they'll just bow out.
It means if they just want to hit the engagement lever, they can do that. Now, what's odd then is the premium currency, which is called Lattice. It's $1 per 100, it's purchasable in discounted bundles, which all seems completely normal. But what's strange is it's used in only one way: converting all of your Lattice into units at a 1-to-1 ratio, which does feel really quite overcomplicated. Then, of course, like Fortnite, there is a currency that you use within the Battle Pass to unlock things. Now, I have noticed pricing is raising some eyebrows. I mean, yes, things are extremely expensive in free-to-play games. You're basically looking at bundles costing $20 worth of units or $35 worth of units if it is an MCU thing. And of course, to explain the MCU thing, well, obviously, the mouse has got to get its cut.
Yeah, that's also another thing. Like, you have to have that premium currency that you can only buy or have to play a lot to do. Then you have to have the mid premium currency that you also get in game, but you also sort of get through completing things. And you have to have the garbage tier currency that you get. Like Warframe does the same thing. You have Plat, which is the premium currency. You have Endo, which is used to upgrade your mods. You can sell mods for Endo. Your credits are just there. I mean, if you start upgrading like the highest tier mods, you'll find yourself running relatively low on credits. Then you have Kuva, which is used to roll your ribbon mods, which are weapon specific mods that you have to re-roll to get the best god tier stats for it. I mean, War and Warframe isn't even a gotcha, but like Nikkei, you have gems, and there's so many things that try to trap you into using gems. You don't just you gotta use them for the gotcha. You know, if you don't, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
But there is one thing where I actually think we've seen good movement here. The Marvel Rivals Battle Passes do not expire, just like Halo Infinite and just like Helldivers 2. This is one of the things that I have been hammering on about for quite a while now in the industry. I think that expiring Battle Passes, say in Overwatch 2 and so many other games, are basically tantamount to FOMO exploiting pseudo-theft. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's blatant anti-consumer action that's trying to capitalize on people's fear of missing out. I mean, if the battle pass goes away, I mean, you're punishing people for not playing the game while incentivizing people and, giving people leg up for playing every day. And I'm so glad that the Helldivers battle passes don't go away and you can get the super credits through just playing the game, because that just adds it's content that's not going anywhere, that if you get enough super credits you could just get, and you're always getting bonds even passively. Like, you get bonds if the community complete things. You don't even have to really play the game, you just hop on after a couple months and it just dumps bonds on you, and it's used to purchase things in the past. Like, that's a small, far superior system than say what Once Human does. And then when the season for Once Human's over, you lose everything. Like, I think that's just blatantly anti-gamer, anti-consumer, and it needs to go away.
the idea that you could buy one of these things and then it'll just go kaput, and that they actually weaponize FOMO to sell you progression through the thing that you already bought. Because whenever you buy a battle pass, yeah, you might intend to finish out the thing, but life can get in the way. If that happens in this video game, you're still going to have your battle pass. You will not have been screwed. Blizzard will happily screw you in all of their games with the way that they do their battle passes.
Yeah, and again, a lot of online games and live service games is moving to this, exploitation of FOMO, which is the battle pass, and it just makes every multiplayer and every like live service game just the same. And I made a video about this, why I don't really play a lot of multiplayer games like I should, like as much as I do like, games like Stalker, Blood West, Forgive Me Father, which are single player games. It's because all the multiplayer games just look the same. And you have outliers like Warframe. I'll always come back to Warframe. It has a season pass thing too, but once you get to a certain level, you can just forget about it. And it's easy to level up. But yeah, I mean, this is yet another thing that's itching its way into every single live service multiplayer game. And it ranges from being absolutely egregious, like Once Human, to being serviceable, like Helldivers.
So, this is absolutely a good move, and I hope that a real major game that is doing numbers like this implementing this type of battle pass actually gets rewarded because this is what needs to be the norm. So overall, it's mostly standard, a little bit of a mixed bag, but they have made a major piece of progress. The next thing to talk about then is the challenge of running a game like this, because already they are seeing cries and demands from players for the sorts of features that some people in Overwatch loved and others didn't. Launch Overwatch 1 was a blast. It was an often busted blast, and many of us experienced that with the classic event. Now, with top-down pressure to focus in the Overwatch League and an internal desire to actually make Overwatch 2 PvE instead, so that they could have a stepping stone to something that would approximate Project Titan, the failed MMO, it's safe to say that Overwatch struggled with direction just a little bit. That still is playing out today, where Overwatch has basically morphed into its PvP self, and if you had hopes for anything else, well man, that just sucks.
Yeah, then the PVE was sort of like the thing that everyone was. It's like just free. It would be like free content, but then they dropped it because again, the way Blizzard thinks nowadays, okay, what makes us money? How do we, squeeze the people who or will just give us money and squeeze our audience? And if it doesn't, well, then we're not worrying about it. Like, that's how they think. And that's, I think it's just anti-consumer. Like, you can add things that aren't going to make make that level of currency as the other thing, but it justifies people playing the game still.
Now, Rivals is a bit like Launch Overwatch. Some shit is completely busted, and it's a bloody good time that's thrilling players, but it does mean they're seeing similar pressures. A lot of people want some form of role lock. They will also want some form of role queue. How are they going to deal with this? And I say that because we've typically seen live service shooters through a ranked progress first, esports focused lens, something I see a lot of pushback to in comments of our videos. So navigating that is going to be a challenge here, especially because they have got such a broad audience. An audience that, in terms of its dynamics, I would say is far closer to the Overwatch 1 ginormous audience than the far smaller and I suppose more clearly competitive PvP focused Overwatch 2 audience. Now, where Overwatch was torn between multiple directions, it's clear that things are going to be a little bit different here because this game is launching the way that it was intended. It's got 3-month seasons, multiple maps and heroes a season. That's the way that the thing is set up. They also get to have obvious marketing around films, major comic things, games, but right now, its real strength is a distinct lack of a calcified, ranked PvP-focused culture, which is what's set in Overwatch 2, where of course lots of people within that culture don't agree with each other on what direction the game should go in. And what that essentially means to me is that in terms of gameplay, this is the inheritor to Overwatch 1's crown. Now, from a world-building perspective, it is not an inheritor to Overwatch 1, and that is the thing that's tragic about Overwatch 1. So many people fell in love with the world, only to be profoundly let down, where the Overwatch world has basically just turned into an excuse to have branded crossover events.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They have like all these crossovers from other companies that have absolutely nothing to do with gaming. And again, when you do sort of like the high-end PvP, I mean, it only really is marketed towards people who intend to actually get good, and this is why I don't go back. Like I love Titanfall 2, and I think it's an amazing game. But if I ever try to get back into Titanfall 2, like I did, like when did Titanfall 2 come out? 2017. Like if I ever try, I know I'm going to get lit the fuck up, for a little bit because the skill ceiling has raised so high and the people who's probably still playing that game, and it does have, a lot of people playing. Like the skill ceiling has just raised so high that if you're just getting into Titanfall 2, you're going to get fucking blasted. Whereas opposed to when it first came out and no one knew what the fuck they were doing, it was a lot more manageable and enjoyable. And we're not even just talking about casual players, right? We're talking about people who intend to get in the meta, but because they can't, because the game's been out for a while, the meta's set, you have probably some of the best people still playing, and you just get washed out. And For Honor has this exact same problem. Like, if you're not playing the cheese characters, it's going to be difficult. And this is coming from someone who actually was decent at the game. It's like if I was to try getting back into it now, I'd get blown the fuck out because the meta has raised. They added more characters. They changed characters around. So you're making a game like this is what happened with Overwatch. They tried to make a game for an ever shrinking audience to the point where even people who played it when Overwatch 1 fell off, people who played competitively in Overwatch 1 fell off because again they made so many changes. So many people know the meta. And again, I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't make the game for an ever shrinking audience of people, like the 2-3% of people that are going to frag out and, not like autistically study the meta. You gotta kind of make the game for, not really the broadest possible audience, but for people who are both willing to try to understand the game, and again, for the people who are the super competitive type, you kind of gotta try to rope both of them in. Because again, the people who are going to frag out, they're going to frag out regardless of how you make the game. But that's still just a shrinking audience of people because some people are going to move to other games. So I mean that's what I have to say about the whole direction. Like this again, this is why Titanfall, like games like For Honor, have fallen off. Uh, what other games? Like I guess you could say Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, but yeah, like fighting games always has this problem where the meta flies past you, and you can try to learn the meta, but if you try to climb the ladder now, you'll just get absolutely obliterated.
We live in hell, but at least if you like that gameplay, you've now got a game that seems catered to you. And NetEase's challenge then is avoiding the mistakes of Blizzard. On balance, I actually think they will largely succeed in this one, but only time will tell. And if you want to check out another pretty hot bit of news, this video next.
But yeah, I mean, pretty good. I pretty much agree everything he's saying. Again, the fact that I don't agree that hero shooters are dying because so many people, again, Deadlock Protocol, this game, Marvel Rivals, is just, you know, people want to go back to Overwatch 1, but Overwatch 1, like, the Blizzard doesn't want to. Blizzard have been losing long before Marvel Rivals existed, to be fair, yeah. I mean, they've made so many decisions that, again, were anti-gamer, like, against their own consumers, you know, that they've been absolutely floundering. Dude, Overwatch couldn't even win against itself. The only thing that kept it going all this time was that it's simple, didn't have any real competition up until now. Yeah, like I said, Overwatch made the blueprint for hero shooters. It's just everyone else is capitalizing off of it. As an Overwatch player, Rivals is the best thing to happen to Overwatch. Yeah, they're giving away 3 legendary skins that were originally intended for the shop and giving away 3 more legendary skins through Twitch drops next week. I hope Rivals keeps up the pressure. Overwatch has treated us like crap for too long. Yeah, they just stopped caring about their consumer base for some reason. Playing in third person really lets you appreciate the assets. Yep. Rival was just the first real competition Overwatch had in the genre and just shows how much more they could have done over the years, but they just didn't. Yeah, you see this with a lot of games that are, you know, that are successful. You think, wow, you know, Western companies could have absolutely capitalized off this thing that this game's doing from Eastern Entertainment, but just chooses not to. Don't let Blizzard's failure distract you from the fact that Santa is canon character in Marvels, so he'll very well could become a playable character in Rivals. Yeah, maybe. Overwatch is the only game that makes people wish for loot boxes to come back. Overwatch is the only game that makes people wish for loot. I don't know what you mean by that. The deciding battle between Overwatch and Marvel Rivals will be fought on the fields of Rule 34. Oh my god. Thanks for the title, man. Say it with me, class. People aren't tired of insert thing here. They're tired of bad insert thing here. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, Blizzard absolutely could capitalize off the things that, say, Marvel Rivals is doing or that Path of Exile is doing, but they choose not to. Like, they choose to think that they're the only competitor in the field. They act surprised when the consumers are like, you stupid bitches, you can do better. But anyway, I mean, that's all I gotta say about this. Peace.